So to highlight some of the major celebrations, I'd like to bring back some voices who were with us on stage during the last Corridor Summit to share success stories as a sample of what you all have achieved. Please help me welcome to the stage Tracy Dean, Juan Hernandez, Fabiola Bayesa, and Jennifer Marshall.
Hi, everyone. They've told me not to hit this clicker more than once, so. Land conservation has had a really great couple of years. My name is Tracy Dean. I'm the president and CEO of Conservation Florida. This is a statewide land conservancy focused on protecting our water, our wildlife, our wild places, and permanently conserving a functional Florida wildlife corridor. I also serve as the current president of the Alliance of Florida Land Trusts, a collective voice for land trusts across the state. And today, I have the opportunity to talk to you about some of my very favorite things: land conservation, the incredible practitioners, many of whom are sitting in this room, who make it happen every single day, and the advocacy and policymaking that has really empowered and supercharged land conservation here in Florida. I'm gonna say something that's a little bit cringy, I'll acknowledge that, but in land conservation, especially here in Florida, teamwork really does make the dream work. Very little happens in Florida land conservation that isn't powered by partnership and collaboration. As a nonprofit, we have the generosity of our donors and supporters propelling our work. As a nonprofit that does land conservation, we rely on the generosity of our supporters, but also on the power of partnership. The incredible landowners who choose land conservation for their legacy. Our federal partners, USDA, Department of Defense, Department of Interior, our state agencies, DEP, DAX, DOT, FWC, and more. Our local partners at the planning, county, and municipal levels. The change makers and leaders who enact positive policy and fund land conservation. And there are many, many more, like Mallory said. Those of you who are in the room are the ones making land conservation and the protection of the Florida Wildlife Corridor a reality. It does not happen without you. And today, I come with some very exciting news, I think, that drives the point home. This isn't something I planned on sharing. We didn't know if it would close. But just last week, we closed on an additional 605 acres, a critical linkage in the Florida Wildlife Corridor. Now, this is a property that was extremely, the process to get there was complex. It involved not one, but two federal agencies. One incredibly generous conservation buyer to step in and allow us the time to fundraise. It involved a county, Polk County. It involved not one, not two, but three land conservancies, TNC, Conservation Florida, and Wildlands. 3 fee deals, 2 conservation easements, and now there's a gorgeous public preserve in Polk County. But again, it doesn't happen without linking arms. Acre by acre, together, we're making it happen. So later at the celebration, if you see one of those folks, give them a little squeeze, a little high five, buy them a drink, but know that I will toast to every single one of you here in the room for the good work that you're doing. Now, since the signing of the Florida Wildlife Corridor Act in 2021, we have seen 160,000 acres approved for land conservation through the state's Florida Forever and Rural and Family Lands programs. In addition to the state-funded easements and acquisitions, almost 40,000 acres have been protected and closed from other sectors, including land trust acquisitions, water management districts, local government acquisition programs, and federal government programs. So much of this is possible thanks to the record funding and green wave that we've encountered. And the corridor is a vision. It's a goal. And it's one that we are rallying behind in this room. Our federal partners are dedicated and funding land conservation. And last year, voters in Polk, Brevard, Indian River, Alachua, Pasco, and Nassau voted yes to fund land conservation, joining Collier, Volusia, and Manatee in funding conservation measures at home. Now, Floridians don't always agree, but we do find common ground in the actual land that we share, and we vote on it darn near every time. More, and this cannot be understated, the state has invested about $2 billion in land conservation in the last 3 years. That's for conservation and recreation land acquisition, conserving land and providing access. Now, we are very grateful to our changemakers and the leaders across the state who are empowering conservation, but we are not done. Legislative session is just around the corner, and we're already up there in Tallahassee singing the conservation song. We need to be saving land at this pace every single year and funding land conservation in a big way to continue if we, and we will, protect a functional Florida wildlife corridor. Now, one of my good friends, Juan.
By the way, if you think that we can see you, we can't. So we're smiling, but we see opal lights. Thank you for having the opportunity to be here. Delighted to be here. Let me push this button here to see what you see. There you, oh, you see, I did it. They told me not to put, so. Really interesting. The bird that you see, I'm not a bird person, but my people are really, really excited. Oh, I touched a microphone. That bird that you see there actually is from the Amazon. And this is a 4th sighting in the United States. And one of them actually showed up to one of our easements. And people are really excited about it. The one below are more regular birds, but I love the picture too anyways. The point is, it's working. Habitat is being developed the way that is intended. We agreed to do the podium, but I will walk a little bit. In essence, it's working. And our success is your success. NRCS is unable to do anything that we do without people like you. And we relied on you, and we need you to continue to come to the table. So when we frame this as NRCS, success is really yours, and nothing but yours. We have access to plenty of funding, but I cannot touch a penny if you don't come in and apply for it. That is the key take home. That all that I'm doing here, the few minutes that I'm tracking here, it is to convince you to continue to come in. So as you can see the number, 283,000. My goal is to, in this upcoming Farm Bill, some of you may know that the Farm Bill is coming. Hopefully we will have it in a year or two. But more news to come on that. But it is my target to get to the 500,000. And we should target that. And I know that it can happen. If you look at that number actually on easements is since we started doing WRP in the 1990s. So that number, when you add all the years, is decent. But I know that if we put our heads together, we can get to that 500,000 within this upcoming Farm Bill. Why? With the opportunities like the Inflation Reduction Act that is bringing resources to the United States like we have never seen before, on the billions. So millions is no longer applicable. And now I'm pushing a bit. There you go. So let's switch a little bit to take this home into the state. These numbers, very impressive. And by the way, this is what NRCS have been able to implement, dealing with Hurricane Ian, dealing with Hurricane Idalia, and anything in between, and challenging with inflation, and on and on. I might need alcohol to give you all the challenges in this year. But what I really want, look at these numbers. And the reality is that we can actually get much better at opportunities because some of you have capacities in your organizations to help us catapult the implementation of these conservation measures. Look at the prescribed burning, 30,000 acres. And you can see these are the top 5 wildlife practices that we have implemented in Florida this year alone. But what I want is that if you like these numbers, we can double them with investments like people in NIFWF. In fact, I set aside $5 million that NIFWF is going to double by $10 million to actually offer technical assistance, to give us the manpower and woman power, people power to actually implement all these practices. And that's why I need people like you to come in and talk to me and say, hey, what is this money from NIFWEF? Because we did actually an RFP, and I'm delighted to say that we did have a successful applicants, and we are in the process of actually making the final selections, and I cannot make them public, but we already set aside, it will be about $3 to $4 million for that technical assistance to hire people to continue increasing these numbers even higher. And we have an additional $6 million that it will be coming on the pipeline in 24 to implement even more conservation work. And this is not in a box. Come to me and ask me. We're looking at forestry opportunities. We're looking at range opportunities. We're looking at grazing. I can go on and on. If you have a challenge, if you have a question, just come to me. I might say no, but we have nothing to lose. CIG, I wanted to bring this one in particular, Conservation Innovation Grant. And why this one is close to my heart is because this one in particular, it came as a result of this meeting last year, having a beer. It's like, we should be doing something like this. And the concept, actually, I don't know if Jim Strickland is on the there you go, my friend. So Jim here last year, we were just chatting. I'm like, we should do something like this. And lo and behold, he's already implementing invisible fencing in Black Bear Ranch to test that technology to see if we can apply it in the corridor to allow access to wildlife. The reality is that I saw a picture here with a clump of bear hair in the fence, and everybody was really excited because they did some testing, and the bear went from one place to the next. And all that I thought is a little cruel to that clump of hair because that got hurt. But I figured that with invisible fencing, they can go through the property, and in the meantime, Jim is going to help us to fine-tune the technology, to make sure that they can still operate cattle and range with wildlife as a mission. And that's what this project is going to be evolving, keeping track of these things. Oh, shoot, I passed my time, right?
You're good.
Okay, so let me do the last one here, because this is really my take home. These are the investments that we have done in the state in the last 5 years. And look at this funny shape of the chart. But what I wanted to bring you home, and the biggest take home, is how the funding has been increasing. But I don't want you to believe that the easement funding investment has increased at the same rate, because it has not. These numbers that you see there is a lot of conservation practices that we're investing. And if you look at the investment, it's $220-some million already, 224 this year alone, which is substantial. It's $250 million that this year alone. But the reality is that we can do more. Easements is something that I know that we can expand. And our CPP, Regional Conservation Partnership Program, it is what I feel is the solution. And yeah, I'm a little biased because that's what I'm doing in national headquarters, fixing the program and whatnot. But I see an opportunity to expand our conservation portfolio like I have not seen before. And I have seen states like Oregon and Iowa catapulting their conservation work to the level that we are starting. We can get there. We just need to take advantage of these resources. Bottom line, I'm hoping and I'm challenging that this group will have an RCPP application for the $25 million that they could apply. So I will be here for the rest of the afternoon. I'm hoping that at least one soul will come to me and say, what about that RCPP? What do I need to do? And that is what I'm hoping that next year I will be here telling you the successful award of that RCPP, okay? With that, I will pass it to Fabiola. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody. My name is Fabiola, or Fabi Baeza, and I'm a conservation ecologist at Common Ground Ecology. Today, I'm here to tell you the inspiring conservation story of the Florida grasshopper sparrow. This is a species that is very near and dear to my heart because my career here in Florida actually began working for Archbold Biological Station with the species at DeLuca Preserve. So ever since, I've always been an advocate for the species and for the protection of working lands. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the species, this little brown guy that you see up on the screen is the Florida grasshopper sparrow, and it is considered the most endangered bird in North America, only found here in Florida. He's a little special guy. He's what we consider a grassland specialist, which means that they only inhabit pristine prairies. In this case, Florida's native dry prairie. In the top right corner, we have a map of what this ecosystem used to look like historically. However, ever since European settlement, this extent has greatly decreased, upwards of 95%. And of course, the sparrow also decreased. And whatever fragments were left of this habitat were not connected. They lacked connectivity. So today I'm here to tell you about the conservation efforts that are being made by the partners. It has been a very successful collaboration between federal and state agencies and private and nonprofit organizations and very passionate people, that some of which have spent their entire careers trying to bring them back from the brink of extinction. So for that, I'm gonna take you back. Did that work? Nope. There we go. So here is the population trend line for the species. In order to fully understand the impact that they've had, I'm going to take you through some of these events, the milestones that they've accomplished. So we can see that in the 1990s, there was 3 populations of the species at 3 Lakes, Kissimmee Prairie, and Avon Park. They were at their highest late 1990s with over 300 singing males out in the landscape. However, shortly after, they started decreasing, and we can see by 2012, this trend line was very evident. Do I click again? All populations were in decline. And at this point, biologists switched their management from just monitoring the species to actually trying to maximize their productivity to avoid the extirpation of the species. And they came up with new management tools that were applied to all 3 properties. We can see that trend line goes up after that a little bit. However, it keeps declining. In 2014, something amazing happened. The discovery of a new population on a private property, which we now know as DeLuca Preserve. This is wonderful news for a couple of reasons, because 1, these sparrows were believed to not be able to exist on anything other than dry prairie. However, on this property, they were existing on semi-improved and improved pastures and coexisting with working cattle. Shortly after that, we can see that they hit an all-time low. There were at some point in 2017 and 18, less than 100 singing males, as low as 30 or 40. Shortly after that, 2016, we can see that the establishment of the captive breeding population came to be, which meant taking birds from the wild, putting them in captivity, breeding them there to later release them back into the population. So in 2019, that finally happened. The first birds were released out into the existing population at 3 Lakes Wildlife Management Area. Now I want you to take a look at that red line. Ever since 2019, this population at 3 Lakes has only continued to increase, which is really amazing. Biologists from the state have documented that these birds are becoming established into the landscape, have been recruited by the population, which means that they are breeding with wild birds, which is truly amazing. So another great milestone in 2021, a second release site became established. It is now public knowledge that this is Avon Park Air Force Range. DOD has been doing amazing work with the conservation of the species by protecting land and doing great management on dry prairie to keep the species thriving. Also, the discovery of a new population that nobody knew about, Corrigan Ranch, another private ranch where these sparrows were existing on semi-improved pastures, and which were actually became the second largest population without any sort of management. So between DeLuca Preserve and Corrigan Ranch being protected, that's 27,000 acres at DeLuca Ranch and 6,000 at Corrigan Ranch. That is about 33,000 acres that became protected to save the sparrows. So with that, it increases connectivity that they need in order to survive and thrive out in the landscape. So in 2022, some more great milestones were accomplished. The permanent conservation of Corrigan became under management of Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park, and this population then became managed by them, and the 500th bird release. This means that since 2019, 500 birds have been released out into the landscape, and we can see that trend line, it only keeps going up. Like Tracy said, teamwork does make the dream work, so of course, a big shout out to all the partners and collaborators. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Marshall. I am the director for the Office of Environmental Management with FDOT, and I would like to share with you some of the exciting things that we have going on with FDOT, and especially in the past year. I met Mallory and Carlton about 18 months ago, and we talked a lot about opportunities between the Florida Wildlife Corridor and opportunities with FDOT and our transportation facilities. And I can tell you that in a year, when I came back to them, we have found some great synergy. Now, FDOT, we have a long legacy of doing wildlife crossings. In the 1970s, we had an environmental impact statement along I-75 and Alligator Alley, and we planned for 20 wildlife crossings at that point in time. Since then, from the 90s when we actually started constructing those crossings, we have constructed over 200 crossings statewide. Now, some of those are official crossings, some of them are just pipes we put in and a turtle says, this is a great crossing, so I'm gonna use it, so we're gonna take the official and the unofficial together. But it's really, really awesome for us to be able to work in this manner. And we're really committed to providing that connectivity where we can. I feel like I've gotten my slides a little out of order, but one of the things that we've been most excited about, and I encourage you to please go to the Innovation Corridor and check out, we have 2 booths. Our first booth talks about Broketail, which is a panther that was injured by a vehicle when she was younger, but has since grown up and taught 3 litters of kittens, her kittens, how to use wildlife crossings. And we actually have video of her teaching them to go through a wildlife crossing under I-75. That shows that the work that we're doing is working, and it's really exciting for us to be able to harmonize our transportation projects with the natural environment that's so awesome here in Florida. Also, you'll also see in the Innovation Corridor, we have another one of our districts, District 5 in Central Florida, that's working with technology to improve safety from vehicle-wildlife collisions. It's using AI, they're using machine learning to also detect wildfires in the area so that we can notify drivers and improve safety along our corridor. We can also use that information down in Southwest Florida and potentially apply it to the panther as well. So that's just really awesome that we're working on that. And finally, one of the things that I wanted to share with y'all today, the thing that really made me most excited to connect with not only our partners with the Wildlife Corridor, but our major partner with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, is our conservation plan that we're working on in partnership with U.S. Wildlife Service and FDOT. We are looking at a way that we can look at the panther from a regional standpoint and not just a project by project standpoint, so we can put in crossings where it makes sense to actually preserve the species and help them to grow and thrive. So we're not just doing something for mitigation, we're doing something to actually move our state forward in conservation. And this is what's so exciting to me and my team. You can actually see the excitement that they have, is that we do have to serve, as our mission in the state of Florida, transportation for people that are moving here. We have one of the fastest growing populations in the country. But we also have the opportunity to preserve a species that's signature to our state. And we can put those 2 things together and really find a synergy between the missions of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the mission of FDOT and move forward together. So we are so excited to have that opportunity. Please join us tomorrow in the Solution Labs when we're talking about wildlife crossings, with trails, when we're talking about different other initiatives that we can do to help with regional connectivity. And we just really appreciate the partnership that we have with the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation, our federal partners, and with all of you here. Please do, if you see someone from FDOT, have a chat with us. We'd like to find other ways that we can continue to benefit the state of Florida. Thank you.